and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. One of the things about me, I am a big planner. I really like to plan ahead, and the biggest advantage I find with this is when there's a time crunch, I am prepared, I'm ready to go. Well, what we want to talk to you about today is planning ahead with your soil testing for this fall. Get everything set up and ready to go. We want to explain how to do this and why it's so important coming up later in the show.
I thought you were going to talk about getting pre-emerge herbicides out for fall seeded crop spraying. I'm thinking about alfalfa, I'm thinking about winter wheat and other crops. Getting a pre-emerge herbicide could set that table for you for some great yields coming up.
All right, one of the weeds you may find this fall, unfortunately, on your farm is our Weed of the Week. That's coming up later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
You spend all year working hard to get as much yield as possible at harvest. The last thing you want to do is put your grain in the bin and have it spoil before you take it to market. Introducing the Grain Temp Guard from Farm Shop MFG. Designed and built by a farmer looking for a low-cost monitoring solution for existing bins, the Grain Temp Guard tracks temperature and humidity with an alarm system to alert you when your grain exceeds safe thresholds. For more information on a system for your bins, visit farmshopmfg.com.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about drain tile and just the basics of drain tile, what it is, so you don't have to be scared about it if you're a non-farmer.
Well, understanding what drain tile actually does is really important. When we think about putting in drain tile, it's not a new concept. This has been done for hundreds of years. And when we look at almost every house that's getting built, Brian, I would probably say every house that's getting built, you're putting tile around the foundation because you don't want to have water come into your basement. So what you're doing with that is the same thing you're doing out in the fields. You're trying to control where the water table's at.
Exactly. The water table can be a good thing, but it also can be a bad thing. If the water table gets too high, what happens is there's no oxygen in the water table. So if there's no oxygen, that means there are no roots that can grow into it. There are no, well, I shouldn't say no soil microbes, but many soil microbes will end up dying off. It's a bad thing for soil health. It's a bad thing for yield. It's a bad thing for the environment.
What we're trying to do is keep that ideal balance out in our soil with 25% water, 25% air, and 50% dirt. The big key is if you get too much water coming up from the bottom, now all of a sudden it's forcing all the air out of the soil. That's bad for microbes and bad for our crops.
The number one reason why farmers want to put drain tile in the ground, yes, it's water table management, but what it really amounts to is if roots can go deeper, then they have much better chance to have oxygen, nutrients, and everything they need to increase yield. So ultimately, it's a yield play for the farmer. But a lot of people worry about, oh, we're going to put tile in and then we're going to flood everybody out downstream. That's ridiculous. The studies have shown there's going to be less water downstream long term. And I just want you to think about this logically for a second. Just step back, take the emotion out of it and say, all right, how is the farmer going to pay for this tile? Well, he's going to pay for it with yield increase, right? If a crop yields more, is it going to take less water or is it going to take more water? Okay, when you think about it that way, you go, oh yeah, I guess a high yielding crop is going to take a lot more water out of the soil. Exactly. So in the short term, when the farmer puts the drain tile in the ground, yes, for the next couple weeks, there's going to be a lot of water running out. After that point, and from then until forever, there's going to be a little bit less water going downstream because the farmer's raising more yield.
Now, the big thing that I like about it too, Brian, is that if you do have that water table down a little bit, it allows more rainwater to soak into the soil rather than run off across the top. And what we've seen over the last generation, this generation of farmers has greatly reduced soil erosion. It's been a huge difference, and drainage tile has been proven in study after study to reduce soil erosion. That's a big thing for the sustainability of farming.
The other big myth that a lot of people believe is that having drain tile out there is going to lead to dirtier water, more polluted water. Also ridiculous, because when you stop and think about it, in order for water to get into the tile, it's not just, oh, when it rains, that water runs down and goes to the tile. The only way that that tile runs is if the water table comes up. So rainfall may go down and then the water table may rise. It's only when that water table rises above the level of the tile line. Okay, well, you think about all that time and all that soil that the water had to go through. The soil is a tremendous water filter. So almost all the time when water comes out of tile lines, it is drinking water quality. It's awesome. So yes, there could potentially be a little bit higher level of nitrate in there than runoff water, but all other contaminants are going to be much lower. And in terms of the nitrate, usually that level is pretty low too if the farmer is properly managing nitrogen applications in his field.
And one more comment about drinking water quality. When we look at the water coming out of drain tile, yeah, there may be a little bit more nitrate, but the drinking water standard is 10 parts per million. It's not zero. There's always going to be a little bit of nitrate in water.
Well, once again, we just wanted to make sure you understand some of the basic concepts with drain tile. The most important thing to know, though, is it is about water table management. We want to keep that water table down to 3 or 4 feet down in the ground so roots and soil microbes have plenty of space to live.
And for our crops to have plenty of space to live, we need to wipe out weeds and keep them out of the way. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the Roundup Ready Extend crop system, the system that makes the difference. Because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
In 1949, Morton Buildings constructed our first machine storage building to establish our bond with the farming community. Since then, our relationship has grown, and so have our product offerings. From the smallest specialized operation to the largest agricultural enterprise, we understand the needs of your business and continue to evolve to meet industry demands. Plus, when you build a Morton building, you're backed by the strongest warranty in the business. To learn more about the Morton Advantage, visit mortonbuildings.com.
Tough, precise, efficient. Strip tillage with the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm. Learn more at soilwarrior.com/agphd.
Do you feel like there's never enough time to get everything done before planting? The window for spring work is quick and unforgiving. Give yourself the upper hand with the Protel High Performance High Speed Disc. More and more farmers agree the Protel is the right tool for Springfield conditions and heavy residue management. Zero maintenance bearings, independent disc technology, oversized pins and bushings allow the Protel to handle whatever field or conditions you can throw at it. Degelman High Performance Equipment.
Increase your productivity with Hypro's dual React control system. The dual nozzle body design allows you to drive at the speed you want while maintaining the rate and droplet size you need. Hypro, helping you spray better.
If you're going to seed a fall crop, we'd really encourage you take a look at the pre-emerge herbicide options. We're going to talk about some of those today.
Well, let's start with alfalfa. A lot of times people are putting alfalfa in the month of August. They've got a little bit of time to get establishment here before we get into the really cold weather in the winter. If you want to get that alfalfa off to a good start though, you've got to stop weeds. You can't have weeds and say, well, I'm going to come in post-emerge to clean it up. There just aren't, number one, there aren't very many herbicide options to clean up weeds in alfalfa. And number two, you're going to thin your stand out. If you want to have a great stand that's going to last for quite a few years, start with the best pre's you can. I really like Eptam. That's been my favorite in front of alfalfa, but you do have to incorporate that. So if you say, boy, that's going to be a challenge for me, I can't really incorporate a herbicide, well, then you may have to choose something else. But if you can go with the best herbicide, Eptam, now you've got grass and small-seeded broadleaf control, and it's going to help you get that stand established really quickly.
Here's the problem, though, in alfalfa. Darren says you have to go with something else. I don't know what that would be. Eptam is, for me, the only option for alfalfa pre-emerge. So that's what I would do, but again, you've got to incorporate it. Here's something, Darren, let me just throw this out at you before we talk about wheat. How about cover crops? Do you think we need a pre-emerge herbicide in front of a cover crop?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about which pre-emerge herbicides that I used last spring could hurt my cover crop this fall. But let's talk about, what if I say, you know, I'm going to put that cover crop in, I want to have a pre-emerge herbicide to keep weeds out of the cover crop. Is that a good idea? Honestly, I think it's great. If you want to put some Sharpen out, for example, it's going to control broadleaf weeds. Before you would seed something like cereal rye, well, I think that could work fine. The challenge comes when you want to do a blend of broadleaves and grasses in your cover crop seeding. There are very few pre's that are going to be selective enough to not hurt anything in your cover crop mix. That's why if you're going to do that, you're probably going to plant something straight like cereal rye, for example.
Let's face it, cereal rye is the most popular cover crop in the United States today. And even if it's not cereal rye, it's one of these grasses. Well, for many of the grass crops out there, yes, you can use Sharpen like Darren mentioned. And the reason we talk about Sharpen so much is it is fantastic on a lot of the Roundup resistant weeds. Plus, it has good burn down activity. So let's say you have some mare's tail up or some other broadleaf weed up right now. You can burn that down and leave yourself good residual for not a whole lot of money, maybe $8 to $10 an acre.
Totally agree, Brian. And if you're going to put in a strictly broadleaf cover crop, that's not a very popular option, but it's something you definitely could do. Well, then you could potentially use something that would just control grass. The challenge with many of the grass killers is they do have some activity on certain broadleaf species. So if you're using a Treflan type product or a group 15 that we would use in corn, for example, like an acetochlor, it's going to have some impact on some of the broadleaves in your mix.
All right, now let's talk about winter wheat. We just mentioned Sharpen. We love Sharpen in front of winter wheat if you have a big problem with broadleaves. Let's say it's kochia. Maybe it's ragweed, water hemp, palmer pigweed, something along those lines. Any broadleaf weed just about, Sharpen has good activity on. Now, there are different rates with Sharpen. You could run 1 ounce. That's really just a slight burn down rate, a small residual rate. Or the rate we really prefer is 2 ounces, and that's where, again, I say that's going to run somewhere in that $8 to $10 range. So 2 ounces is the preferred because that gives you a lot more residual, a lot better burn down, and yes, it is an excellent herbicide, an excellent choice in front of wheat.
Let's face it though, Brian, a lot of times we're after grasses because you say, I've got wheat out there. I can kill broadleaf weeds post-emerge for the most part pretty well. I'm more worried about grasses, and especially if I've got something like one of the brome species. That can be quite a challenge, and there aren't many choices out there other than ALS products.
Yeah, so when we talk about ALS products, Prepare is probably our favorite just because it's very inexpensive. I really like that at 0.2 or 0.3 ounces. You're going to spend $3 to $5 an acre, something like that. But then there is also Olympus. Now the problem with Olympus is you are going to have much more residual. So you have to really look at what's my rotation. If I'm going to spray this fall with Prepare, I'm not worried about rotation. By a year and a half from now, when I'm going to raise another crop, I can raise almost anything.
Now I mentioned that most of the products for winter wheat are in the ALS family. However, the Group 15s are available as well and are getting more popular.
So by Group 15s, what we're talking about here, the only one that's really labeled is Zidua, or the active ingredient that is found in Zidua, like with Anthem Flex. Anthem Flex, for example, has that active ingredient that's found in Zidua plus AIM. So the AIM gives you some burn down, but it's not going to have any residual. That Zidua, the Group 15, that's really nice when it comes to certain grass species. The problem with it is you've got to spray it very late pre or very early post in your wheat.
Well, another thing with the Group 15s, the Group 15 portion of those herbicides isn't going to burn down weeds that are up. But if you get some rain like this, it will activate that soil residual, pull it into the shoot of that plant, of the weeds that are coming up, and it will kill them that way.
Well, once again, we just really encourage you, take a look at your pre-emerge herbicide options for any fall seeded crop you are going to raise. Having a pre out there can get your crop off to a good start, give you better winter survivability, and overall, it should give you better yield.
Well, there are certainly weeds out there that we want to stop. One of those weeds is our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Harvest, you have one goal: finding the perfect flow of grain from the field to the bin. Case IH axial flow combines are engineered for matched capacity to deliver proven grain savings, so you can keep efficiency flowing smoothly. Find yours with the Case IH Axial Flow.
There are a lot of steps to having a perfect season. Don't let your fertilizer plan be the step that trips you up. No matter when you apply fertilizer, no matter how, AgroLiquid has the experts and the products that'll help you move closer to your target and hit the bullseye. AgroLiquid moves you closer to your target.
Do you feel like there's never enough time to get everything done before planting? The window for spring work is quick and unforgiving. Give yourself the upper hand with the Protel High Performance High Speed Disc. More and more farmers agree the Protel is the right tool for Springfield conditions and heavy residue management. Zero maintenance bearings, independent disc technology, oversized pins and bushings allow the Protel to handle whatever field or conditions you can throw at it. Degelman High Performance Equipment.
I need results, so I choose the one system I trust to take weeds down and keep them down on even my toughest acres with the kind of yield potential that helps keep me in the black to deliver my kind of results season after season. I choose the Roundup Ready Extend crop system. I choose results.
I've been completely satisfied with the job that XtendiMax has done.
It's a good product. It kills the weeds.
I'm extremely happy with my weed control. We're going 100% Extend next year as well.
This might be the best overall farm average on soybeans I'll have.
It works so much better than anything else that we used in the past.
It's been remarkable. We have seen a tremendous yield potential increase.
The XtendiMax takes the weeds down.
It just flat out works.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
With almost any job on the farm, the first day or two you do it each year, it seems like things are ridiculously slow. Well, today we're going to talk about how you speed up that whole process with soil testing this fall.
Well, first of all, you have to make a plan. And if your plan is, hey, I'm going to pull some soil tests myself, great. Find your app that you're going to do. The Ag PhD Soils app would be a great place to start. And then get your field set up. You can set those fields up in advance, and actually you have to set the fields up in advance if you're going to do any soil testing out there, so get that job done. It's an office job. You find a rainy day like today and you go ahead and get it done. It doesn't take much time to set those field borders and set up your map of how you're going to do your soil testing, whether you're going to grid that or you're going to just pull in certain areas of the field. You can do that all in advance.
The next thing is make sure you get all your supplies on hand. You want to have a soil probe or even multiple soil probes. Maybe you have a team that's going to do this. Maybe it's your family. You have kids. Get people involved in this thing and it'll speed that process up. But you want to have all your supplies around, have all the sample bags, get everything set up, and maybe even do a field right now. Do a tiny little field, do a 10-acre field or something like that. So you get a little practice in and you decide, oh, okay, here's how I want to do this. So you can really go fast this fall. The whole thing is, when fall arrives, you should be able to do 500 acres per day if you're on 5-acre grids. Now, it's going to be a lot fewer acres if you're on 1-acre grids or 2.5-acre grids, but the point is, you want to be in mid-season mode right away day one. You see what I mean? You got to be able to go fast. Also, equip your four-wheeler or your pickup. Get everything ready to go so when that day hits, you say, all right, now we're rolling and we're rolling full speed.
Well, if you're going to do that, Brian, and you're going to use a team, you've got to get everybody trained. For example, I've really enjoyed time spent with my kids out in the field pulling soil tests, and my kids actually do a really good job at it too. You just have to show them how to use the probe. You want that probe to be straight up and down, and you want it going in at the same depth every time. So if you're pulling 6-inch cores, make a mark on your soil probes. That's something you can do in advance too. So you just push them in down to the mark, you stop, and you pull your core. It's that simple.
Perhaps the most important thing when you're getting this all set up and ready to go this fall is make sure that you are going to do a complete test. We see so many soil tests that don't have all the information we need to make good decisions. They don't have base saturation. They don't have micronutrients on there. They don't have cation exchange capacity. Get a complete soil test.
So as you can see, there's several steps here to getting ready to do soil testing on your farm. It all starts with setting up those fields in your app, talking to your lab, making sure you're going to get that complete analysis that's going to help you out, and then getting your team trained and equipped to pull the samples.
Well, whether we're talking about preparing for soil testing or preparing to control our weed of the week, planning ahead is really important. We're going to talk about that weed of the week coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Italian ryegrass is a short-lived perennial, maybe a biennial. A lot of people just look at it as an annual. It's not the most difficult weed in the world to control, but it is our weed of the week, and we do want to show you how to stop it in different crops.
You know, when we think about soybeans and corn, Brian, with the options of Roundup and Liberty to spray some of these weeds, we don't see this diversity of weeds that we're trying to fight. We just see a few species. Italian ryegrass is not one. We can control it with Roundup, no problem.
Yes.
But when we get into crops like wheat, we were talking about that a little bit earlier in the show. Here's where the challenge comes.
All right, but before we get to the tough one of wheat, let's talk about the other ones just a little bit more. If you have soybeans, we really encourage you start with one of the yellows. So that would be trifluralin, Sonalan Prowl, post-emerge. Yes, you can use one of the graminicides, something like Select Max, Clethodim. Those are pretty good, but Roundup is certainly better, and Roundup's even much better than what Liberty would be as well.
And in corn, we'd start with one of the group 15s down. And again, post-emerge aren't as many options. Accent's not going to be the greatest thing in the world. You'd have to get it really, really small to control Italian ryegrass. So we do like having that Roundup or Liberty as an option.
All right, now let's talk about wheat. The challenge in wheat is we are finding some ALS-resistant Italian ryegrass. Well, most of the products that have activity in the non-ALS resistant ryegrass are ALS herbicides. So let's talk about Prepare. We mentioned that earlier in the show as a pre-emerge herbicide. Post-emerge, Everest 2.0, that's pretty decent. You could use Beyond in Clearfield wheat. So there are many ALS options for you on this Italian ryegrass.
However, what's really becoming more popular has been using a group 15. So if you're using an ALS, you can also use a group 15, something like Zidua or Anthem Flex. And now you've got a couple different modes of action. If you do have some ALS resistance out there, the group 15 will pick up the slack.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I want to reiterate this. You have to spray that Zidua or Anthem Flex very late pre, so right before the wheat comes out of the ground or just as it's spiking. That's the ideal timing for spraying that group 15. Now post-emerge, if let's say your Italian ryegrass is ALS resistant, so you can't use Osprey or Everest 2.0 or something like that, you're pretty much stuck with Axial. Now Axial is not the greatest thing, but at least it will give you some suppression on Italian ryegrass.
As you can see, this weed of the week is easier to control in some crops like corn and soybeans than it certainly is in wheat, but it is a weed that we do have some options to stop on your farm.
Well, that's it for our weed of the week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
There are a lot of steps to having a perfect season. Don't let your fertilizer plan be the step that trips you up. No matter when you apply fertilizer, no matter how, AgroLiquid has the experts and the products that'll help you move closer to your target and hit the bullseye. AgroLiquid moves you closer to your target.
Your planter is the single most important piece of equipment on your farm, because without a uniform stand, you can't reach maximum yield. That's why Harvest International set out to design a planter that takes advantage of the newest innovations in planter technology. Built tough for high speed and integrated with the latest precision enhancements, Harvest International planters ensure every seed you plant today puts more in your bin at harvest. Harvest International, planting the future. If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
At Estes Performance Concaves, we know how valuable your time is at harvest. That's why we designed the new XPR concave system. The XPR system is the #1 performance concave system on the market, surpassing the rest in both speed and efficiency, ensuring every last grain from your field gets into your tank. Plus, XPR concaves work for all row crops. No more changing concaves, meaning you have less downtime. Take back your bushels this harvest. Get Estes Performance Concaves in your combine today.
You spend all year working hard to get as much yield as possible at harvest. The last thing you want to do is put your grain in the bin and have it spoil before you take it to market. Introducing the Grain Temp Guard from Farm Shop MFG. Designed and built by a farmer looking for a low-cost monitoring solution for existing bins, the Grain Temp Guard tracks temperature and humidity with an alarm system to alert you when your grain exceeds safe thresholds. For more information on a system for your bins, visit farmshopmfg.com.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
At Harvest, you have one goal: finding the perfect flow of grain from the field to the bin. Case IH axial flow combines are engineered for matched capacity to deliver proven grain savings, so you can keep efficiency flowing smoothly. Find yours with the Case IH axial flow.
If there's still corn growing in your area, you've got some homework to do. I'll explain during today's Iron Talk. Getting your planter set just right and seeing each plant emerge about the same time definitely sets you up for higher yields. At the Ag PhD Field Day once again this summer, almost every one of the corn yield champs from across the country made this point over and over, giving all the credit to even emergence as part of their success. It's the attention to these seemingly little details that sets growers apart, and 2019 was no exception. With soil conditions being less than ideal and planting windows being exceptionally narrow, planter errors were magnified like never before. Spacing, avoiding doubles and triples, as well as how even your emergence was, will still be evident in your fields right now, so I encourage you, get out to the fields and check. Also, look at the consistency of your stand and the consistency of the size of the ears and ear placement. When you see those smaller ears out there, there's a greater chance that it stems back to an uneven emergence and an error made by you or your planter this spring. Now, the same could be said about uneven plant height. You can trace it back to a planter problem. This means you got some work ahead of you before planting your next crop. Fixing problems on your planter is a job that'll pay you back thousands of dollars for the hours of work that it takes in the fall and winter to get it set up just right. Don't skimp on planter upgrades and fixing replaceable parts now. Take them out. It will make you some money. Just get out in your fields right now. Take a look at them before harvest. Look for unevenness and address it with your residue management system this fall and your planter set up in operation going into the spring. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we want to invite you to check out the Ag PhD Insider magazine. You can just go to agphdinsider.com to learn more. We've got a lot of great agronomic information in there that we know can benefit you on your farm.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.